Right. Hello there. Have you ever wondered how a dermatologist actually figures out what's going on with your skin? Well, it's not always about a single test. It's much more like a brilliant bit of detective work, where every single detail is a potential clue. So, let's dive in and uncover how they do it.
So, here's the big question, isn't it? How does a doctor look at, say, a simple rash and get to a very precise diagnosis? That's the mystery we're going to unravel today. And honestly, it's a fascinating process that's part art, part science, a real mix of careful listening and some seriously sharp observation.
You know, every great investigation has to start somewhere, and it usually begins with an interrogation. In the world of dermatology, this is the patient history. It's all about gathering those crucial verbal clues before you even get a proper look at the skin itself.
Okay, so what's really useful here is how we can boil down a whole load of questions into 4 key areas, or pillars. First up, you've got the chief complaint. You know, the basics. When did it start? What does it feel like? Is it itchy? Is it painful? Then we delve into your medical history and your family's too, looking for any patterns or genetic links. Your lifestyle and environment are another huge clue. Things like your job, where you've been on holiday, that sort of thing. And finally, and this is so important, what the patient themselves thinks and feels about it.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? A detailed history isn't just ticking a box. It's the absolute foundation of the whole investigation. More often than not, it points the doctor in exactly the right direction long before any fancy tests are even on the table.
Right. So once all the verbal clues have been gathered, it's time to survey the scene, in this case, the skin itself. This is the physical examination, and believe me, there's a strict protocol to make sure not a single piece of evidence is missed.
To do this properly, you need really good, bright light. Daylight is best, if you can get it. The patient has to be completely undressed because a tiny clue on your foot could be connected to a rash on your back. The whole point is to check everything, the entire surface of the skin, from the scalp and inside your mouth, right down to the palms of your hands and even your genitalia. Nothing gets missed.
Okay, now we get to the really visual stuff. All those spots, bumps, and rashes, what doctors call lesions, well, they have their own language. Learning to describe them accurately is like learning a whole new vocabulary, and it's absolutely essential for cracking the case.
So, the first big distinction to make is between primary and secondary lesions. It's actually quite simple. Primary lesions are the original signs of the problem. They're the first thing to show up. Secondary lesions are what happens to them over time. You know, maybe they've been scratched, or they've started to heal, or they've got infected. It's basically cause and effect.
Let's do a quick fire round of the most common types. First up, a macule. This is just a flat area where the skin color has changed. Think of a freckle. You can't feel it with your fingers, you can only see it. Simple as that.
Next, we have the papule. Now, unlike a macule, a papule is something you can definitely feel. It's a small, solid, raised bump, and it's less than a centimeter across. A common wart is a perfect example of a papule. And you can see how these things can build on each other. A plaque is basically what you get when several papules join together. It creates a larger, raised, sort of flat-topped patch. If you've ever seen someone with psoriasis, those classic scaly patches are plaques. Then you've got the nodule. You can think of a nodule as a papule's bigger, deeper cousin. It's also solid and raised, but it's bigger, over a centimeter, and it sits much deeper in the skin. Often, you can feel more of it under the surface than you can actually see on top. And finally, for our quick tour, we have a wheal. This one's a temporary visitor. It's a fleeting, swollen, pinkish area caused by fluid building up in the skin. If you've ever had hives or been stung by a nettle, you know exactly what a wheal looks and feels like. Now, it's not just about what the lesion is, but how it's arranged, its configuration. This is a massive clue. Are the spots in a straight line? That could suggest something you've brushed against, like a plant. Are they all clustered together? Or do they form a ring shape, which we call an annular pattern? That's often a sign of a fungal infection. Each pattern helps narrow down the list of suspects. So, you've taken the history, you've examined the scene, but what if the visual evidence just isn't quite enough to be sure? Well, that's when you bring in the forensic analysis, the special tools and the lab tests. And this is where modern medicine is just incredible. From special lights that make things glow to taking tiny samples for a closer look, the dermatology detective has a whole arsenal of high-tech gadgets to confirm their suspicions and get that definitive answer. One of the coolest tools is the Woods light. It's essentially a special ultraviolet lamp. And what's amazing is that when you shine it on the skin in a dark room, certain types of fungi, bacteria, and even pigment changes will fluoresce. They'll glow in very specific colors. A fungal infection might glow a greenish blue, while vitiligo shows up as a brilliant porcelain white. It's incredible.
But for the absolute final confirmation, especially if you suspect something serious, you need to look at the cells themselves, and that means taking a biopsy, which is just a small sample of the skin that gets sent off to a lab to be examined under a microscope.
There are a few different ways of doing this, and each has its purpose. An excisional biopsy is where the whole lesion is cut out. That's ideal for a suspected skin cancer because you remove all the problem tissue at once. A punch biopsy is like a tiny apple core. It takes a small, deep cylinder of skin, which is perfect for looking at all the layers. And a shave biopsy just skims a thin layer off the top. That's often used on the face to keep any scarring to a minimum.
And the toolkit really doesn't stop there. You can do skin scrapings to look for fungus under the microscope, or specific tests to hunt for the scabies mite, or run all sorts of patch tests to figure out allergies. The forensic lab is well and truly open for business.
So after all that, it leaves us with this final thought. We've got all this incredible technology, from UV lights to DNA testing, but is it possible that the single most powerful diagnostic tool is still that combination of carefully listening to a person's story and carefully observing the clues on their skin? It's the blend of art and science that really solves the mystery. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me.